Monsters. They can be anything, from creatures that lurk under the bed to a family member who disagrees with you politically. And nobody knows monsters better than today's guest, who, when she isn't creating and painting monsters for Magic the Gathering, is a concept artist full-time for Netflix who, although I've never heard of them, apparently have enough money to pay people full-time. So, good for them. But let's not wait any longer and get to the interview with artist and monster creator extraordinaire, Oriana Menendez. The first thing I'd like to ask is the monsters. When did your fascination with like creatures, monsters, start to happen in your life?
Wow. Probably since I was a kid. I've always really liked things with monsters in it. I guess, when I was a kid, it was like Digimon and stuff like that. Actually, I do have memories too of seeing people play Magic, and I love the art so much of the creatures that I just got some of the cards purely for the art. I never actually played the game though. But it's just stuff like that, and horror movies and just like shows and things like that. I didn't initially start with monsters. I had originally been doing work in theme parks and stuff like that. But then I kind of had a moment where I revisited what my passions were, when I was a kid, when I was just like drawing for myself. And I realized that, hey, I just like weird creatures and painting them. So let me focus on that, right? So
now, when you say you reevaluated, is that what you were talking about? Because I remember reading, it said somewhere in 2019 you had a career leap. Is that what you're referring to?
yeah. So I left my work in theme parks in 2019, and I basically just went hard in trying to do like the best creature art that I could, and trying to find work in that and see if I could make a living with that. And it was, well, it went unexpectedly, so in a good way. So I'm pretty happy about that, because when you start, you're always wondering like, well, I hope this works out. You just try your best, but yeah.
I would say it worked out smashing. It's now it's I don't want to jump ahead of myself, but I want to know who were some of your favorite, or like it's not who, what were some of your favorite creature designs like from movies growing up? Would you say like just your all-time greatest hits?
Let me think. Uh, huh. Well, I mean, this is a more recent inspiration, but it was like a lot of manga I like to read. So like I'd read like Devilman or Berserk or something, and they
Oh,
had
I
some.
love those. I just got into
Yeah,
Berserk just about a week ago.
yeah. I got in. I read it a few years ago, and then all the designs there are just wild, right? Um, and there are movies too. I mean, like Hellraiser, the design of the Cenobites, that was like very appealing to me. Stuff like that.
Right.
Um, yeah, like the magic cards that I saw when I was a kid, all the dragons and things like that. Oh, I love dragons so much.
Yeah.
So yeah, so any dragons, anything with dragons in it. Like when I was a kid, I think one movie that I liked to watch over and over was the Flight of Dragons. Um, so just any creature really that was kind of like fierce looking or something like that was really definitely very appealing. Um,
And right now, I've also read. We'll get to some of your. I'm going to ask you specific questions about your artwork, like specific pieces, because there's some crazy stuff going on. But I see also that you're working at Netflix now.
yeah, that's a recent like update, but yeah, I'm doing visual development stuff at Netflix right now.
What does visual development do at Netflix? What does that job entail?
It's basically a lot of like early kind of production concept work, and then also like production. So you just kind of stay on and do development for the show or film that you're working on. Um,
So
with a,
these
yeah.
are these for like the Netflix specific series? Like, is it like for the Netflix like family of films or whatever? Is that they sort of just assign you to whichever project they think is good for you?
Yeah. It's for a specific production. It's production based. So
Awesome. Are you allowed to say anything about it yet?
oh, nothing has been announced, so I can't really say. But
Okay. Well, here's hoping
yeah.
it's horror. Because I was looking at some of your concept designs. Now, the concept designs, like for instance, one of the ones that I couldn't. I mean, it was pure nightmare fuel. Was the Flying Morph that you did? Now, what brought that one about? Because I was trying to see if that was connected to maybe a specific like IP, and I don't think it was.
Oh,
Um,
which one?
it's called the Flying Morph. It's sort of like a giant like it's got a mouth in the center of its body with different like fangs, and then it's got these wing bat hands, and it's just horrifying. It's
Oh yes, yeah, that one. Wow, I can't remember the title. I'm bad at titles, so I
it's
forget all the
okay.
titles of my art pieces.
It's
But I know
okay.
which one you're talking about. Yeah, so that was for a project that was inspired by the Ars Goetia. So like, you know, the
I'm a dummy. What is the Ars Goetia?
I'm not even sure if that's how it's pronounced, but it's basically like this book of demons. So it kind of describes all the demons. And so I kind of wanted to explore some designs of that, just like surrealistic sort of nightmare fuel kind of demon designs. And
Right.
so it's been a while since I've worked on that one, so I don't have all the inspirations off the top of my head, but I know I was looking at like Wayne Barlow, for example. Um, Definitely, obviously, like super awesome illustrator that was very inspirational to me. Um, I was looking at a lot of his works, primarily a lot of like anatomy books, things like that. So that was kind of my inspiration. It wasn't based off like a specific design. It was more just trying to capture like the design, for lack of a better word, like essence, like language a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
like making a monster with a lot of like teeth and skin and like weird anatomy and things like that. So
And when you make these monsters, do you take like into consideration, like say a real world, like sort of like, oh, would this work in say gravity, or would this work like would this animal be able to function in a Earth setting, or is that something that you don't have to pay attention to because it, it's more about the visuals rather than the practicality, I guess.
it definitely depends on like the creature. So
Mhm.
if it's a more grounded creature, you know, that's supposed to be an animal, not necessarily like a horrifying monster, then I try to base it a little bit more off living animals and anatomy and a little bit of practicality of like, oh, how did the animal evolve to be this way? But if it's like, yeah, if it's like a weird demon or something, then it's just, you know, let's go ham and make it as horrifying and nightmarish as possible. And that's basically the main um, sort of crux of it.
Yeah, because that flying morph, and it looks like from the way I'm seeing it, maybe I'm seeing it incorrectly, but it looks like it has a whole other side of itself that is another version of that horror-like front. I mean, I was freaked out by this thing. I mean, it's awesome because I'm a horror fanatic. I love horror movies. I love all that stuff. And when you get me going, like I feel like that you should be feel very accomplished, frankly, because yeah, aside from the Magic Gathering and the Netflix, you scared me, and that's obviously very important. I mean,
Well, I'm glad that it like elicited a reaction. That I hope that means the illustration was successful.
oh
So
no, I mean, yeah, it's successful. I mean, that thing is I couldn't believe that it was. I mean, you just put it out there and I'm like, I hope somebody just steal that because it's awesome. I mean, it's really truly freaky. And even the coloring of it, it's got like sort of like the coloring of a mako shark, like that red and blue and white kind of thing. It lets you know that it's a threat, the vibrant colors and nature of anything that's like, dangerous, which is why I had asked about the original, like, do you borrow stuff from nature to put it into the fantasy stuff? Because I had my theory.
yeah, I definitely do. On some points, because I feel like there's there's a thing with horror. I feel where it's like you can draw a lot from nature that is horrifying. Like there's so many terrifying creatures out there,
Like
and
babies.
yes, wait,
I'm joking. Like I was just like saying, like, like H.R. Geiger alien getting pregnant.
yeah,
That's every time I talk to a pregnant woman, they're like, I feel like there's an alien in me.
yeah, yeah, no, totally. And definitely drawing from like human anatomy too, because it's familiar. So when it's like familiar but wrong, that just elevates the horror so much. And yeah, obviously I really liked Alien 2 and Aliens and all that. So that
Yeah,
definitely informed the sensibilities there.
I learned about it in a master's class for English. It was they call that thing in horror. They call it the interstitial, which apparently it means like when it's stuck between two different types of animals. When it's like that uncanny thing that you can't put your finger on what it is. That's what creates horror. And then like so it's like that's why lobsters are so freaky deek because they're fish bugs. Like they're kind of like just strange looking crabs. That same kind of idea. Now
Yeah.
with your career leap now, how did you then get involved with, were you doing Dungeons and Dragons first? Is that what you started with?
So I reached out to an art director, Jennifer Mills, for Dungeons and Dragons related concept work. And so I did a bit of that, and then happened to apply to a concept like contract position for Magic the Gathering. And then I just like tossed it in. This is like a cold email. It's like, hey, do you need someone to do creatures? And they said yes. And then I worked on like the team for a little while and did some like concept work for Magic, and that was a really special time for me because I kind of felt like I was a newbie, and I was like, the team made me feel very welcomed. I worked with Blake and Sarah at the time,
Yeah.
and it was like I said, it was very welcoming. Like I couldn't have been. It was a little bit dreamlike for me because before that I just worked on like really small freelance jobs. So until working for D&D and then a little bit of Magic work, but yeah, and then from
So
there.
you got the D&D work first, because I'm always curious about how people ended up getting into Magic, but you cold emails what happened? That's pretty awesome. I mean, wow.
Yeah, I was surprised too. I wasn't expecting to get an answer back, but then I did, and it happened, and I just tried to do my best. So yeah.
What was the first piece that you did for Magic?
The first one was the Sphinx. That was the 1st
Mhm.
card I did. Yeah, for
And
the Strixhaven.
what's really cool about like your brand basically, I mean, you are newbie in a sense of to the game of Magic as far as an artist goes, but you've already gotten, I think, 4 rares under your belt, which is not too shabby for like a first, like for just a set or two.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised there too, I guess, because I had a lot of availability for doing cards, and I you know Sarah recommended me to Zach, uh, which I appreciated, of course, and so Zach assigned me cards for the D&D like set, and so I got a bunch of creatures and things like that, which I get matched up with like the work I did before, and so yeah, just ended up doing a bunch of cards there. So
Do you have any pieces that you found were easier to do, or that just came out more like fluid than others?
yeah, for sure. I'd say that like with each Magic card, I definitely tried to push it as much as I could because I felt like before that I was doing a lot of more like a halfway point between a concept design illustration versus like a Magic illustration, which is definitely more like, you have to consider more the composition, the camera angles, multiple figures, all that stuff. So some of them they came a little bit more simply to me. Like the Sphinx, the first one I did, was probably more used to the things I was doing, where it's like a singular creature. I focus on that creature's design to render it like as much as I can and make it as pretty as possible, basically. um, Whereas for some of the other ones where it's a little bit more focused on the action of the piece, I'd say like the Pest Bound was probably a little bit more challenging.
Mhm.
The the one with the goblin and the guard, that
The
one.
Price of Loyalty, I think it's called.
Yeah, the
Yes, I
Price
believe
of
so.
Loyalty. That one was a little bit more challenging. So things like that, it was personally for me a little bit more outside my comfort zone. Inside my comfort zone is, here's a monster and paint the heck out of it. So that was basically it there.
Is it trickier to do humans than it is? It's trickier for you to do humans, say, than it is monsters?
um yeah, I'd say so. Like I still can paint figures and such, but
Oh,
I'm the
obviously. That's not no doubt there.
yeah. Like I still like, paint the stuff, but definitely monsters are a little bit more my comfort zone, I'd say. Uh, just because it's just a favorite subject matter of mine. So
Now, when you say they brought you in to do concept design as well on the Magic game, in addition to doing the artwork.
yeah, I did some concept work as well.
That's pretty badass doing that right out of the gate. Like, I don't think that that's the way it works for everybody, at least not the people I've talked to. That's got to be pretty insane.
Yeah, no, it was a really incredible experience, I'd say. It's, and obviously like I was pretty grateful for the opportunity to be with all these really skilled artists and just work on a team with them and bounce ideas. And I'd say, yeah, it was very formative for me just as an artist and things like that. So
Who would you say are your, like, one of the more influential upon you, the artists for Magic the Gathering? You don't have to name necessarily one person, but maybe a few people that you really remembered being suckered in by their art.
that's hard. It was pretty much everyone on the team. I'm, I'm gonna have to list a lot of names.
You're
I mean,
okay, so Ross, you're just like every Magic Gathering artist ever, except for a couple.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, um, when I was working with Lake, I had a lot of great mentorship from him and Sarah too. Um, you know, Zach as well on the cards. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is an unsatisfactory answer, but I'm just
Oh my
really
goodness.
happy with everyone's working with everyone. So
There's no
yeah,
such thing as an unsatisfactory answer. You're doing great. It's fantastic. I know it's not necessarily some like every like this probably isn't a comfort zone for you in a sense that because a lot of artists are used to being behind the scenes and not necessarily talking about their work. And then now because you are in Magic, you're going to be somebody who is gonna people are gonna want to talk to. So it's a different kind of setting.
yeah.
Have you gone to any of the, I know with the COVID, it sort of put a damper on any of signings, but have you had a chance to experience that yet?
Signings, not yet. I'm just kind of starting to get into that part of Magic, so I'm learning a bit about that stuff now, and but it's all yeah, remote and basically via posts and stuff like that. So no conventions or anything.
Do
Um,
you play any, do you play any Magic now yourself?
uh, I've been meaning to. I've been really curious about uh, getting into Arena and making a deck and things like that. It's just been a matter of I end up taking a bunch of work and then I leave no free time for myself. It's just a bad habit of mine. But
Well, yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's a bad habit, but I guess in the pantheon of bad habits, it's not the worst one you could have, right? It's pretty useful. I mean, successful artist as a result, right? Not too
yeah.
not the worst. Better than smoking.
Well, yeah, it is better than that. So, but I'm still working on it so that I could actually enjoy some leisure time and yeah, actually participate in the thing that I kind of helped at some point, like make some things for it, right? That's always really cool. So, um,
Do you have any sort of inclination for creating, say, like fiction or stories of your creatures that you make? Do they come with a story attached to them?
I've been considering a few things right now. It's sort of more in the nebulous phase. I've been working with a few like ideas, but none of it's really been. I haven't made any like finished art for it yet. Like it's mostly just like reinterpretations of like mythology or something. Like how can I get this myth and make it horrifying or something, basically.
You
So
did you did a great series of those for your personal pieces on your art station.
yeah, the monster the 30-day monster challenge. Yeah.
Do you have all those monsters that you did, like the whole collection? I'd love to see them because I'm scrolling through and I don't think you posted all of them. Am I correct?
Um, I might not have posted all of them, but yeah, I have those in a sketchbook. I recently moved, so they might be in a box somewhere, but I do have the sketchbook. Uh,
Those things are, I mean, they're really awesome. I know I'm sounding redundant, but the concept work that you did, I mean, like it's crazy that like only now that you, I mean, I'd assumed you'd been doing creature features from like the get-go, but it's astonishing that you were able to jump into that and land a job at Netflix when you said you worked at theme parks before. Like that is crazy. Now how did you just apply for the Netflix job too? Is that what you did? You do cold email for that, or how do you apply for a
um,
job?
I actually they reached out to me because
Oh snap.
yeah,
Ooh.
so um they reached out to me for production and it was I was like, yeah, I'd love to do that. Basically, that's how that went, which was also kind of a surprise for me because like I said, when you're starting out 2019, I was like, I know nobody. I'm gonna paint monsters, I guess. So it just happened like that. It was a little bit crazy. So
That's astonishing. Do you know who it was that like how your name got brought up? Do you know who like the origin of that was?
yeah, it was actually via Twitter. So For a while, yeah, part of doing monster stuff was trying to just promote my art as much as I can on Twitter, just so that people could see it. And so through that, I was able to get eyes on it, and then they reached out to me, and then things moved on from there. Yeah.
Is there an IP like in a film or a creature design that you will like it would be a dream job for you to work on, maybe one that's already established?
I mean, honestly, I feel like this is probably like an impossibility or a little bit of a
I don't
weird
know.
answer, but if there were ever like a really like a Berserk adaptation, it would be kind of a dream to work on it. I know, I don't know how that would work out, but it would be very cool.
I
I'm a
think
huge
that
fan.
I think that Berserk is one of those like things that it's never going to stop being adaptable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's the even the incarnations of it, and and I know that everybody hates the one that came out most recently. I don't hate it. I get what they're saying, but like I like it. It's just, I read in an interview the director said that because of the anime situation with the overworking, that a lot of people would quit, and because of that, that's what the outcome. But it's one of those like classic stories that I think is always going to be able to be uh, done by another like creative mind. So you never know.
Yeah. You never know. Like I'm at this point I'm like, well, it would be a nice dream, which I guess is kind of thematically appropriate for Berserk. But
Yes, yes. And also, I mean, I'd say for you, it seems like you're like, you're pretty like you got something going on with as far as dreams coming true, like bing bang boom. I mean, that you have to stop and think. Netflix offered me a job. Like they approached me. I was approached by Netflix. Like that is badass. Like that's I mean, come on, you gotta feel a little proud about that.
oh yeah, I feel like it feels pretty, and it does feel pretty amazing. You're always a little bit like, I don't know, like brains are weird where you're like, is this real though? Like
Yeah, exactly. You're
is
like,
this for real? Like, is this really happening? And I was in that mode for like the first 3 months of that job. So
and has it been like I don't know how much you can talk about, but as far as we could maybe leave out the subject of it, but what kind of like do you just how do you what's a day in the life of working at Netflix? Do you show up and do the like through the computer? How does that work? I mean, with everything now.
well, because of COVID, everything's remote. But yeah, it's not too different from other concept work. I feel like animation can be pretty different from, say, like a magic push, for example,
Mm-hmm.
because it's longer production time, so you have more time to just like do concepts for things and flesh things out, and it's very focused on like a narrative. So um, you have to follow like a script more closely, things like that. So it's not too different in terms of doing concepts. Like on the artist level, you get your work, you do your concepts, you turn it in, get feedback, which is kind of standard for concept work, but just for a different medium, basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I did want to ask about was the pestilent wolf. Now, I'm curious about the story behind it. The man in the background, with it looks like he's got a shovel or something. What's going on there? What was the story behind that? I find it fascinating.
So basically, the idea was that the wolf is kind of stalking him in the woods. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I had to find a way to kind of have both of those in frame in a way that communicates that a little bit, with also having the wolf in the foreground, but also looking hidden. So it was a little bit of a tricky balance for that. That was a piece I did end up using a maquette for. So that was kind of my sort of artistic journey there. Was
You say you
it's
did or you didn't use a maquette for it?
I did.
Now you can make those maquette. I mean, that blows my mind. You guys are so crazy talented. Like all of you guys. I mean, I didn't know the word maquettes until about 6 months ago, and then all of a sudden, after talking to you guys, a maquette is that. How do you? Was it? Were you trained formally as well? I mean, where's the ability to do that come from?
Well, yeah, I went to art center, and so you got a maquette class there, and I also took more maquette classes in that time when I was trying to transition from theme parks to creature stuff. Um, there, I took classes because it felt like, for me, it feels like if you can kind of rough out your design in 3D, you have kind of a better understanding of it.
Hmm.
It's kind of like, when you do a study of something, it's better if it's like a 3D study of it, because you understand the form, like the solid weight of it a bit better than from like a photo. So that's kind of why I wanted to emphasize that a lot. Was just, I was at a point where it's like, okay, I've cranked out a few illustrations of creatures, but now I want to figure them out like even more, on a deeper level. And so that's why like I really wanted to prioritize at least learning some basic maquette making skills, um, to try and like apply it to illustrations and things like that.
Do you think that you'll ever get to a point where you'll start attempting, maybe say doing like analog paintings because of the market for art that there is in Magic?
Yeah, I actually really, really like the fact that that with Magic there's like a space for people to do analog painting, because it feels like, for me, at least from my experience, it's everything has to be digital so you can crank it out as fast as possible, basically, which I'm used to that, but there's something special about being able to be like, no, I want to get out a canvas and oil paints and just paint, and that's
Yeah,
it,
it has that like well, it's tangible. It feels like you made something that's like physically taking up space. It feels, I guess, more like a creation, right?
Yeah, it does. There's definitely something special about even just sketching on paper or painting it. From I don't know, maybe it's because I work mostly in digital, but whenever I get a chance to just do pen drawings or something, you just get into like a zen mode. Maybe it's because there's no distractions on the computer. There's always distractions,
Right,
but
true.
yeah, if you're drawing, it's like, nope, it's just me and the paper, and whatever you have to put some lines on it so that you can make the art. So it's more of like a trance kind of, in terms of process.
I
Yeah.
can understand that. That makes sense. And when you are doing that, like, so do you think that what you'll maybe, I don't know how you would do it, but like, how would you do an analog version of a card if you're, working on one, you want to say you want to make it, maybe, would you do the digital rough first and then finish it later? How would that work?
Um, I mean, in terms of analog, I've mostly worked in gouache, so I'd be most used to gouache. I feel like I would probably do like the rough and maybe tweak it in digital just for speed purposes, and then work on the final. I feel like I'd have to get a little bit more practice with oil painting first, because I've mostly done acrylic and gouache, but not too much experience with oil. And that medium, obviously, like different medium, you know, different quirks, different process. Uh, so I definitely feel like I'd have to familiarize myself a little bit before I feel comfortable doing like professional work for it. But it's definitely something that's been on my mind for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, it's amazing what you guys, the amount of attention that you're on, and it's also like so. I love like talking to you guys about the fact that you're going to be on these cards for forever. You're part of this like legendary game, and it's very great. It's cool, especially when I get to talk to newer artists like you. I'm like, you're going to have this career, and it's going to, in 20 years, you're going to be part of like the mainstays of Magic, and kids are going to be coming up to you and treating you like the royalty that you would be, have for like the people who have been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah, that's that's always surreal to me, because for the longest, I mean, still I feel like I'm the person who just like looks at people's art and I'm like, wow, that person's great, and it's I for me, I don't really, I guess I need some time to figure that out, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, you
But
got to metacognate on that.
yeah.
I won't keep you for much longer, but I will ask you. I do want to know the Abysmal Unicorn. Uh, what's the story? I don't know. What is that? That's from a game or something? Is that from a role playing game? The one you did with it's pretty scary. I've never thought I'd say that there's a scary unicorn, but this is one.
Oh yeah, that one. So that was actually just a sort of design idea I had of like, what if I made a unicorn, but it was kind of like an underground blind horror unicorn. But it was actually based off like when I was in college, I played a lot of Skyrim.
Okay.
And so there was those like I think elves or goblins, like that whole underground like lair of theirs. And so it was like a design of elves, I believe, but adapted to the dark, to the caves, and it was kind of like a nightmare. And they, you know, they didn't have eyes because they listened. I mean, it made sense, right? Like underground, no light. They didn't have eyes. They used their other senses. So that kind of inspired me for that. Basically, is
Right. What
yeah.
was that movie with the horror? I mean, it's with the girls they were going underground mining. I can't believe I'm blanking on the name of it. It's a frightening movie with the underground dwellers. They have like they do have like those moles the mole people. Oh, this is gonna kill me. I'll remember it later, and I'll probably talk about it at the end of this video when I do the outro. I'll be like, yeah, I'm an idiot, and but so the unicorn's terrifying. Have you ever scared yourself like with your designs? Like, have you ever done something you've been like, oh, that's truly disturbing.
You know, weirdly enough, with monsters, no. I find the thing that freaks me out is are like ghosts. So anything to do with like ghost stories makes me like unreasonably, like illogically paranoid.
Really?
So yeah, that's like my fear for some
What
reason.
did you have an experience with ghosts growing up?
No, but I feel like my like my family was always very superstitious, and so you kind of get that, even if you know a lot like your like your conscious side of your brain is like, yeah, but this is just a superstition or a story. But then like, you know, you hear a noise or something or a creepy story and it's like, you know, but wait, what if it's real? So that's that's kind of the horror aspect of it.
So Paranormal Activity is probably not your favorite movie to watch.
I've never seen it. I do like one ghost story movie that I really liked was Lake Mungo, where it was basically like a movie that was kind of like a mockumentary of a haunting of this of a family's house of like their, you know, like their daughter that passed, and so she was haunting the house, and it
Was it
was
called
very.
Mondo? What's it called?
Oh, Lake Mungo.
Oh, Lake Mungo. Is it an American film or is it foreign?
I think it was Australian.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So just things like that where it's very grounded, and then it makes you a little bit paranoid. Like it's a little bit creepy. It's not like over the top jump scares. It's like just very low key. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
low droning rumbling noise or
Mm.
something. It's like, oh, is something there? You know, that kind of thing. That really freaks me out. Anything with like a little bit of like atmosphere, like tension and things like that. That I'd say that probably scares me more than say like a jump scare or something. Oh, there was one monster that scared me. The bear in Annihilation, the bear with the human face on it that screams.
That
That
is
freaked me out.
that was a disturbing creature, and it's yeah, that scream. It's you got to give that sound design a heads up, like a hands like applause for that thing. And that thing was truly disturbing. It really was. It was freaky.
Yeah.
Now, I know you can't talk about the specifics, but are you currently working on any other magic artwork as we speak?
Um, yeah, I'm doing some work, but I'm trying to just since I have the full-time work now, you know, I have to balance it a little bit on the side, but um to make sure I don't overwork myself or anything like that. But yeah, I have a few things I'm working on because I mean, you know, working on magic is also a dream. It's like it's been pretty incredible. So I, you know, it's hard to say no.
Right. Yeah.
But
It's amazing. And do you know when I mean, I'm not sure. Do you have like an approximation of whenever the thing that you're working on with Netflix will be released approximately? Is that something you can say?
um I don't have much information about that, so I can't really get into the specifics, but if as soon as there's information that's released, I can speak on it more. But
And I know that you're very busy, but is there anything you're working on personally that you would like to talk about before I let you go?
um I have been, well, the mythology I've been working on right now has been a little bit of like Greek mythology inspired kind of designs. I haven't done like I haven't released a lot for it. I've done some sketches on Twitter, but I've been trying to see how I can twist that in like a little bit of a horror ways, you know, like inspired by some like I said, Wayne Barlow or Clive Barker, kind of Hellraiser stuff. So because I feel like it's interesting because I feel like when people approach Greek mythology, it's sort of, well, very based off the archaeology, which makes sense. I mean,
Right,
that's
right.
the historical material you have, so why not? But but the mythology itself has a lot of really horrifying things in it. Like definitely, you know, with gods like Dionysus or Artemis will have a story about turning someone into like an animal, and then they get torn apart or something that's like a nightmare.
Right,
And
right.
and
And
I
you,
think, yeah.
I'm sorry, go on.
Oh no, I was gonna say that that was kind of interesting to explore, and maybe it might not even be recognizable as what I was originally basing it off of, but I'm just kind of using that as like a leaping point to see where it goes from there.
That's a great sort of take. You bring up a very good point, right? Is that, you know, if you take, say, something that maybe like the Wendigo, which is traditionally a Native American, the mythology, but what happens if you did it through, say, like an Asian lens, or if you did it through, you know, a lens of another, like, genre of kind of artwork? You could get something equally as new and still keep to the basis of the myth, right?
Yeah, I just it feels like an aspect that hasn't really been explored that much, but
I
yeah,
don't think it has. I think it's a
yeah.
great idea. Is it something you would maybe do for like maybe an art book, or is that sort of the what would be like the end game for that?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, I'm thinking of it more as just like a design challenge as a way, because I feel like as an artist, there's kind of a way you sustain yourself by working on personal work, where it's just purely things that you just want to work on and challenge yourself and think about, you know, without considerations that would be in a professional setting, like deadlines or, you know, multiple levels of approval, which, you know, is to be expected. But so I kind of want to use this as a project to just kind of feed that part of myself as an artist. So I'm using it right now just as basic like world development. You know, what's an interesting language? You know, what are the characters? Like, what do they do? How are they presented? What do they represent? Things like that. And then maybe do some like more elaborate paintings, because I feel like I want to challenge myself in that way, just to, you know, do paintings that I've haven't really done before, um, just as like a challenge to myself, I guess. And then yeah, if there's, I guess, an art book or something that could come out of it, that would be pretty cool too. But
It's definitely got, you know, the thematic thing is what I think makes it kind of a cool idea, is that, you know, since they are like, you know, if you do everything sort of like by either mythology of like, say, Roman or Greek or whatnot, and sort of group them together, it sort of gives it that like cohesion that makes for a great little like, you know, art book.
yeah, yeah, I think, yeah, just having like a consistent project to go back to, you know, for whatever reason, whenever there's free time, or, you know, you're feeling a little bit of burnout, you kind of like refill your tanks a little bit with your own personal piece and stuff like that. And I guess I guess I haven't had anything much to show yet, because I'm trying not to put that pressure on myself too. It's like, you know, when an artist presents their sketchbook, sometimes it can be a little bit harrowing because you always want to put your best foot forward, and your sketchbook is sometimes just like a mess of scribbles. So right now it's kind of at that stage where it's like a mess of scribbles, and like,
Right.
you get that freedom to just explore without, you know, pressure a little
Or
bit.
judgment, yeah, you don't want to, you know, you don't want people to sort of like it, well, it's like sort of they're embryonic in that stage, right? You could be, it could be a fully finished piece in a sketchbook, right? If you, I mean, hypothetically, but it also could be something that is, you know, like still forming.
Yeah, yeah, it's like a space where you're allowed to put all your terrible ideas and then realize, hey, maybe I shouldn't do that and do
Right.
this instead and do this instead. So
I'm not gonna lie,
that's
I have interviewed myself in the shower before. It has happened, and I certainly wouldn't want. Well, now that it's out there, but I certainly wouldn't want anyone to know the questions I've asked myself. But I've done that before to sort of practice the pattern of interviewing. It's what you do
yeah,
when you're.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, I thank you so much for taking the time, and I really look forward to all the work that you're going to do and have done. It's fantastic stuff, and keep on doing it. You're hitting them out of the ballpark.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks so much. It's been a blast. So
Thank you too. Oriana has a great career ahead of her, I would say. After all, she got an offer from Netflix, which, for the record, I was kidding about not knowing anything about that. I mean, how embarrassing would it be if I didn't know anything about that? I know all of the streaming internet movie websites. Hulu, Vudu, Hibbo. Okay, cameraman, you can do better than this. You honestly expect me to believe that these are actual names of streaming companies? Really, you're just getting lazy with these pranks. Well, until next time, I'm Alper Markov, and I got a scoop, and go watch a movie on Hibbo. Ridiculous.
Bye-bye.